So I've just finished playing through this great new game called SLHRPG. It probably has to be one of my new favorite pony related things that I've come across. If you like role-playing games, shipping, and brightly colored horses, then you should love this game. What does SLHRPG stand for, you might ask? Super Lesbian Horse Role-Playing Game. I'm completely serious. While some people may find this name off-putting and others may find it enticing, I can assure you all that this game is a good time for anyone who enjoys the more eccentric side of the fandom. This game is loaded with tongue-in-cheek humor and doesn't really take itself too seriously until about 2/3 of the way through, and even after you hit that mark, it still manages to be funny. Its style is very reminiscent to that of the Mother series of games, or Earthbound if you live in the US, and even has a direct reference to it in the name of the main town, Ponette. The enemies are pretty cool as well because the game producer held a contest to get the designs, so most of the enemies are in different art styles. They're also pretty fun simply for their creativity. For example, one of the baddies you face partway into the game is literally a color wheel and it palette swaps the members of your party to confuse them. Don't worry though, they go back to normal at the end of the battle so that you aren't forced to run around with 4 blind bag ponies instead of the main cast. Another thing I like about the game, besides its off-the-wall humor and creative enemies, is the soundtrack. Now, I have a special place in my heart for video game soundtracks, and I've always loved the sound of older 8 to 32-bit music. So every song in this game makes me smile, and I'm proud to say I have the entire OST on my music player. It even has a beautiful piano solo for those of you who like more traditional stuff. All in all, the game has some very solid music, especially Javis's battle theme. It's just positively sublime. It's so good. Now, the game isn't perfect. As much as I hate to pick on a quaint little fan-made RPG, this is a review, so I do have to give my honest opinions. The game itself is not that long. I beat the whole thing in just 4 hours, but of course, some people like shorter games, and you are getting it for free, so I guess this complaint is pretty subjective. One thing I think a lot of people will agree with, though, is that while the dungeons in the game are fun and creative in their own right, they tend to detract from the game's ability to pull you in. They're designed to play off the fact that you are, in fact, playing a game. And the very first one is pretty surreal, but as soon as you figure out that what's happening is supposed to happen and isn't a product of your computer becoming corrupted, it just keeps screaming in your face that the game is a game. This small fact keeps you from being drawn in, like how you would if you were playing, say, Mother 3. That game utilizes your suspension of disbelief to create a world that you think could be real, whereas SLHRPG makes sure that you realize that, at the end of the day, it is still just a game, and all your party members and items are still just lines of code. One last downside I want to mention is the difficulty. A game is supposed to be designed so that while you can win, if you play badly you will suffer for your actions and your poor choices. Super Lesbian Horse RPG is balanced in such a way that as long as you defeat most enemies in one dungeon, you should stay leveled up enough so that the next dungeon won't pose too much of a threat. I didn't get into a battle I was actually afraid I'd lose until the final boss. I think this imbalance is caused by 2 things. One, I never ran out of money, so it wasn't hard for me to just go to the store and buy a bunch of healing and mana regeneration potions, and 2, Fluttershy. Just as a whole. There's no enemy that did enough damage that couldn't just be healed away by the little yellow pacifist. Her healing spell cost 2 little mana, and she herself was a tank, having far more HP than any other party member. Now, don't think that I dislike the game because of those issues. I freaking love this thing and would recommend it to anyone in the fandom. All in all, for what it's worth, I give this little piece 5 out of 6 cast members. While it has a couple of problems, it's so fun that any fan of shipping shenanigans should be able to overlook these issues and have a great time. I highly suggest you play this game. A link to the site and the place where you can get the soundtrack are in the description. Cheers!